If you're an old friend like me, scouring the internet since you were barely able to understand English, you've probably seen this meme song from 2010 simply called Chinese Rap Full, where a Chinese guy raps something about a kitchen in the desert and thought nothing more about it. But what if I told you that what he was rapping about wasn't some random Chinese lyrics without any meaning, but a summary of a 500-year-old Chinese story about love, deceit, infidelity,
stupid fucking mistakes, man,
and the royal politics of the Ming dynasty. So strap yourself in for the wild ride of a white man's autistic ramblings about the grievances of Chen Shirmei, the wonders of traditional Chinese opera, culture, history, and what led up to this well-known point in the story. And I'm not kidding when I say I will go super full-on autism mode. But first, a word of caution. This is going to seem very strange, and many tropes of Chinese opera may be very foreign to most of you. But please view this with an open mind and try to immerse yourself in the story of Qin Xianglian. And if you're actually interested in this and don't want me to ruin the experience with shitty jokes and oversimplifications of Chinese idioms, I recommend you go watch the entire opera instead, which is fully available with subtitles right here on YouTube, link in the description. But without further ado, let me present a surprisingly good story, hidden behind a meme, hidden behind a language barrier.
金钱看齐，向上写着，秦香莲那30。
The story starts with a monologue of an old but energetic man named Zhang Sanyang running an inn for travelers looking for customers to spend the night in the capital city of Kaifeng, one of the largest cities in the world during the time. He sees a mother and her 2 children show up crying on the side of the street singing about the misfortunes bestowed upon them. And this is no easy list of misfortunes. Both her mother and her father-in-law recently passed away. The family has had no contact with the father for the last 3 years, and now left with no choice set out on a mission to find out what happened to her husband. Leaving the town of Jingzhou in Hubei province to the then capital, a journey of 1000 li or roughly 500 kilometers. Luckily, the innkeeper also being from the town of Jingzhou and very kind, happily lets them in.
Free of charge.
While inside, the mother reveals her name to the innkeeper, as well as her reason for the trip to the capital. The innkeeper, wanting to help her, asks the name of the husband, that being He explains that 3 years ago, a man named Chen Shirmei stayed at this inn while he was taking the imperial examinations, achieving the rank of Zhuang Yuan, or the top scoring candidate of that round of the imperial examinations. But what are the imperial examinations? So for those of you not aware,
That means people without Asperger's.
China has been a civilization state which some claim dates back to circa 2100 BC with the Xia dynasty. Just imagine how insanely many years of bureaucracy this is. Nearly 4,000 years of, besides some years of cannibal war, unbroken state organization. With this huge history of state organization, a meritocratic need for literate, intelligent and well-focused bureaucrats grew, and during the Sui dynasty, the imperial exams became implemented, having the top-scoring test-takers in Confucian thought getting jobs in the aristocracy. Basically, leaving you with the choice of either study maxing until you're 25 to get a high-paying job sitting indoors behind a desk, soullessly analyzing an endless stream of information, or doing physical work in your community. What a horrible way to live. I'm so glad we've improved on that system in the last 500 years. Anyways, back to the story. After hearing her husband had become the top-scoring candidate, her natural next question becomes, Letting that information slip, Zhang Sanyang explains that Chen Shirmei, having had such success with his imperial exams, swooned the ruling empress and got married to her daughter, making him prince consort and Risk King in the process. So to summarize the story thus far, because this story is getting pretty cluttered, Chen Shirmei travels to the capital in order to take the imperial exams, leaving his children, his wife Qin Xianglian, and his old parents in the process. While waiting for him to get back, his wife cares for both his dying parents and children for 3 years, thus becoming poor in the process. While she takes care of everyone, he gets a very good score and ditches them to become a royal, and doesn't say a word about already being married to the royal family. All in all, a very unbased individual. Qin Xianglian rightfully becomes very pissed off and wants to bring him to justice. The innkeeper agrees.
Yeah, that's pretty true.
And brings them to the palace, where they come up with a master plan to act as visitors from his hometown in order to be let in. Upon arrival at the palace, they see that it's guarded by a very mean-looking bearded warrior, bearing a striking resemblance to either a lion or the Swedish Twitch streamer Forsen. Qin Xianglian approaches and says what she has planned, but is shocked when the guard responds that Chen Shirmei under no circumstance will accept any visitors from his hometown. She tells the guard to tell Chen Shirmei that the visitor is bringing 2 children by the names of Yingge and Dongmei, and is very determined to see him. The guard obliges and goes over to tell Chen Shirmei, who upon hearing the names reacts with what I can only describe as a Chinese version of the Vine boom. Recovering from the initial shock, which nearly knocked him off his feet, he hands the guard 100 taels of fine silver.
I will pay you money.
And instructs him to hand it to Qin Xianglian and tell them to quickly head back to their hometown. And should he disobey, tells him that he will snap off his lanky chicken legs, proving that this character is in fact canonically Chinese Forsen, and I will be referring to him as such from now on.
I'm chicken.
Qin Xianglian, however, refuses the silver and goes on to reveal that she's in actuality the wife of Chen Shirmei's first marriage, and that the 2 children are his. Skeptical,
I don't think so.
Chinese Forsen asks if she's aware of any festivities in the coming days. Qin Xianglian, knowing the birthday of her husband, answers that they will be celebrating his birthday tomorrow. Of course, revealed with the iconic Chinese Vine boom. Chinese Forsen, now convinced, wants to help her, but explains what would happen should he disobey Chen Shirmei's orders.
Take down your trousers and snap your dick in half.
Chinese Forsen thinks for a moment and quickly comes up with the idea of ripping off a piece of cloth to make it look like he tried to stop her but was unable to. Qin Xianglian agrees to the idea, hands him a piece of cloth and rushes into the palace, meeting Chen Shirmei well inside. After calling Chinese Forsen a useless dog,
You fucking dog.
and kicking him away, Chen Shirmei asks Qin Xianglian why she's here at the castle and not back home taking care of his parents. What he doesn't notice though is that Qin Xianglian is currently wearing mourning clothes due to both his parents having passed away. When told this, Chen Shirmei is initially a bit sad, but quickly shrugs it off and tells her to not speak of what used to be and to cut ties and start a new life, showing how unsympathetic and cold he has become. With little hope left, Qin Xianglian tries one last attempt at getting sympathy from her husband by having their children cry at his feet. A very emotional scene which makes him reconsider for a moment before realizing that he almost threw away his royal title for something so little as family, pushing away both his children. The grind never stops. Wife and children are just a distraction from getting that bag. Chen Shirmei truly is one of the hustlers of all time.
Fresh yellow cheese, grandson.
After a quick song number about how he's a horrible person who threw away his family for fortune and status, Qin Xianglian along with her children are thrown out of the palace. Qin Xianglian, now back on the street, is enveloped with despair as she explains the situation to the innkeeper. But her grievance is cut short as they are interrupted by gongs clearing the street. Confused, they ask why. Apparently, Chancellor Wang is coming to town in order to celebrate Chen Shurmei's birthday, and Xin Xianglian, being the girl boss that she is, immediately comes up with a plan. She leaves the children with the innkeeper and gets in contact with the Chancellor in order to file a formal complaint against Chen Shurmei. Chancellor Wang, who is a very wise minister, hears her complaint and believes her, but is constrained by the strict rules of royalty, which restrict matters of the palace court to not be made public. He ponders for a moment and comes up with a plan inspired by the Dorbar tale from the Eastern Zhou dynasty, lasting from 771 to 256 BC. In the Dorbar tale, a disgruntled, poor man by the name of Bai Li Shi sets out on a journey to find success, but leaves his wife in poverty. The tale gets its name from their last meal together, where they were so poor that in order to cook their parting meal, they had to burn the doorpost for fuel. And as they ate, they promised they would eventually be together again. The wife later finds Bai Li Shi, now having become prime minister, and totally forgotten about her.
Who are you?
She decides to sing a song which melody is based in their home region, named Yan Yi Ge, or Dorbar song, where she sings about their last meal together. The lyrics roughly go: Bai Li Shi of ramskin, when we parted we cooked the hen and burned the Dorbar. Now you are rich and have forgotten about me. It's a very beautiful song and it's available right here on YouTube, so please go check it out, because as of recording it only has 100 views. After singing the song to him, he remembers her and their vow, and they get back together. This story has also had a Chinese opera adaptation, and if you look more into Chinese opera, you'll find that men finding success and leaving their wives is a very common trope. Anyways, Xin Xianglian finds it to be a great idea and agrees to follow Chancellor Wang to the birthday celebration in order to sing a song from their home village, to stir the feelings of Chen Shurmei and remind him of the promises they made to each other. Fast forward to the birthday party, and important people are greeted by music and fine wine to celebrate the occasion. Finally, Chancellor Wang arrives wearing a yellow Mang Fu robe. And I could go on about the hierarchy and meaning of each mythical beast and the amount of claws on clothing during the Ming dynasty, but that doesn't really matter for the plot. All you really need to know is that only specific people were allowed to wear it, so this guy is important. Chen Shurmei is shocked that the Chancellor had come to visit him for such a small event as a birthday, so he very respectfully invites the Chancellor in for drinks with the other partygoers. But the Chancellor declines, in favor of drinking alone with Chen Shurmei in the West Wing in order to follow through with the plan, citing that his presence would disturb the other partygoers. With the two now drinking alone, Chancellor Wang reflects on how much fun the others seem to be having with music and drinking games, and how boring it is to drink without any entertainment. Chen Shurmei offers to have the palace girls sing and dance to relieve their boredom, but the Chancellor says that he's heard all the songs that they could offer, and finds them too boring. He instead suggests that they invite someone from the street singing songs from the countryside, so the Chancellor instructs one of his servants to go pick up a good musician, and instructs Chen Shurmei to listen very carefully, because these songs often contain no small amount of meaning. Enter Xin Xianglian, and Chen Shurmei is furious. But being the two-time back-to-back blockbuster video game champion that he is, denies ever having met her. And after a long back and forth of idioms where Chancellor Wang basically just says you need to be kind to poor people,
and if you're poor, then kill yourself.
Chen Shurmei finally allows Xin Xianglian to sing her song, which lyrics roughly translate to: the husband traveled east, the wife stayed in west, shriek and swallow flew in two directions. In the boudoir he looked only at his bride-to-be's smile. Why could he not hear his bride that was sobs? The Chancellor, trying to solicit a reaction, asks Chen Shurmei if he ever had heard such a song before. Chen Shurmei of course denies, and the Chancellor again repeats the lyrics to the song in order to try to force introspection, calling the man in the song a hot and cold unfaithful husband, which is referring to two Changyu that use heat and cold to describe inconsistency, and how people will abandon those they can no longer use to their own advantage. Anyways, the song continues with the lyrics, "When we parted, I spoke a few words, which have never left my heart. If you succeed in the examinations, you must not look upon us as chaff." This text reminds the Chancellor about a famous quote from the Han Dynasty minister, Song Hong. "Do not forget those who befriended you when you were poor. Do not forsake the woman who married you in lean times."
Are you, Barry Dillon?
But when Chen Shurmei is asked about the quote, he doesn't seem to remember. So Chancellor Wong uses the Changyu, I guess, great men have short memories, which is in reference to how successful people often tend to forget those who helped them along the way, being a quick jab at Chen Shurmei, while he only understands the literal meaning, thinking he was just being called a great man. Continuing on with El Musica, Xin Qianglian sings, "Fortune was not kind to the town of Jingzhou. A 3-year drought withered all its crops. My pitiful family had not even a speck of grain. My poor parents-in-law met their ends worrying about their son. I dug the graves for the burial of my husband's mother and father. We begged our way along the long journey to the capital, my 2 children enduring more than their share of rough waters, wind and frost. I heard word that my husband's name had been added to the imperial register, and truly hoped that husband and wife, flesh and blood, could rejoice together. Who could have known that he would so covet wealth and rank, that he would forget his own family? My heartless husband found strength enough to ask his flesh and blood to drift about in a strange land." Finishing the song, overcome with emotion, she reveals that the story she had been singing about was her own life, and that the husband's name was Chen Shurmei. And after some altercations with one of the servants, Chancellor Wong leaves to let the pair hopefully reconcile. Xin Qianglian explains that all she really wants for them is to be reunited and for their children to live a steady life. But Chen Shurmei argues that the prestige of being prince consort is way more important than both her and their children. Taken aback, she asks what use prestige is if it's what killed the husband she loved and destroyed her family. But Chen Shurmei is convinced that she just got tired of living on the countryside and now has corroborated a plan to leech off him now that he's successful, telling her to get out of his sight before he does something he's gonna regret. Re-enters Chancellor Wong, who wants to mediate and help the pair get back together. He sees the obvious problem Chen Shurmei has put himself in.
That's a big problem.
By lying to the Empress, and offers to shoulder the responsibility for him and renounce his title. Although this is the perfect happy end for all his troubles, Chen Shurmei sees this as all too good to be true, telling Chancellor Wong to stop meddling in their affairs. But the Chancellor stands firm in his stance of wanting to help, only taking sides to even out the playing field. But all this help turns out to have been in vain, as Chen Shurmei only seems to be able to think in terms of colors of Bugattis, and proposes that Chancellor Wong just let her live with him instead, fixing everyone's problems, making both the Chancellor and Xin Qianglian extremely furious. So the Chancellor tells Xin Qianglian to go see Judge Bao Cheng, who will help her exact her revenge. Meanwhile, Chen Shurmei calls upon a mercenary soldier named Han Chi, and explains that he's in a bit of an awkward situation. So he orders Han Chi to kill both his wife and his children, and to return to the castle after the deed is done with a bloody sword as proof. But Han Chi is conflicted, wondering why the prince would tell him to kill people without stating what they have done wrong to deserve such a punishment, but quickly remembers that he's just a soldier that should just kill without questions.
I kill people for a living.
Cut to Xin Qianglian, and she's running with her children to Bao Cheng's palace, with Han Chi closing in behind them. So with little time to spare, she decides to hide in a shrine to hopefully get away, but gets found out, making the only option left to try to explain her story to the soldier and beg for her life. Luckily, the soldier is a very virtuous man who empathizes with her and realizes that Chen Shurmei has lied to him, after which he reveals that it was in fact Chen Shurmei who had issued the order to have her and her children killed. But the soldier is still left with the problem of returning the sword with blood on it as proof, and Xin Xianglian offers to have herself killed in order to have her children spared. Caught with the ethical dilemma of killing her or defying orders, Han Shi slices his own throat, letting Qin Xianglian and her children live on. With the screen fading to black, we arrive at Judge Bao's palace, and Chen Shurmei arrives. He tells Judge Bao that his mercenary got murdered by a thief while out on an assignment, and that he has captured the murderer, calling out one of Judge Bao's servants in shackles. So this is kind of confusing, because they skipped a scene in this play, probably because of time constraints, but the servant got sent over to Chen Shurmei's palace in order to bring the prince back to Judge Bao, for so far reasons unknown. So, in order to get Chen Shurmei to Judge Bao without making a scene, he confesses to the murder of Han Chi, and therefore gets brought over to be sentenced by Chen Shurmei himself. So now that you're up to speed, we can continue the story. Judge Bao asks the accused if he confesses to the crime, which he does. But Judge Bao, also being the one who gave the order, requests the removal of his shackles. Chen Shurmei is shocked by this and asks who will be responsible if he escapes. But Judge Bao doesn't budge, saying that he has captured the true murderer and says to bring them out, revealing Xin Xianglian and her children, having Chen Shurmei instantly in a fit of rage trying to kill them. I'm coming to kill you! But Judge Bao doesn't let him and asks why he would kill someone he has no connection with before even interrogating them. Now with Chen Shurmei calm again, Judge Bao can start the interrogation. He accuses Chen Shurmei of having had a wife and children back in Huguang before taking the imperial examinations, and tells him to recognize his wife and children. But Chen Shurmei denies it, saying he studied diligently for 10 years, not having time to marry, let alone have children, arguing that the accusation is without proof or merit, forcing Judge Bao to read the formal accusation by Xin Xianglian against Prince Consort Chen Shurmei. Finally, the legendary moment you've all been waiting for. It only took 1 hour and 48 minutes to get here. One of the hardest mic drops of all time. With Judge Bao now having read the accusation, he calls for Qin Xianglian to recite her story. But one problem arises. Chen Shurmei doesn't confess to ordering Han Shi to kill his wife and children, and he argues that there's no proof to what he ordered Han Shi to do. What he doesn't know is that Judge Bao has the sword which Chen Shurmei had given to Han Shi, a sword which belongs to him, pointing to who gave the order to kill directly at him. With Chen Shurmei now realizing that he's fucked, he refers to the 36th stratagem from an old Chinese book of the same name, kind of like the art of war, with a series of stratagems used in politics, war and civil interactions. With the 36th one being, of all the 36 stratagems, fleeing is the best. Unlucky for him, this doesn't seem to work out, so Chen Shurmei resorts to referring to his title yet again, arguing that sentencing the prince consort will have huge consequences for Judge Bao. But Judge Bao is still unmoved, and proceeds in an act of symbolism to have his royal hat knocked off his head, his red dragon robes ripped off him, and has Chen Shurmei tied up. But just as things are about to get spicy, the Empress Dowager arrives, with the princess accompanying her. The Empress Dowager is very pissed off at Judge Bao for wanting to behead Chen Shurmei, the husband of her daughter, but when stood face to face with him, he denies having a prince consort tied up in his manor.
Nope.
The only person he claims to have is a man who has broken his marriage vows and who has broken the law. It doesn't matter if he's the emperor's son-in-law, even if the Song Emperor himself would have arrived. Judge Bao explains that he still wouldn't have pardoned him, but the Empress Dowager is still stubborn and asks to hear the accuser, With Qin Xianglian now standing before the Empress Dowager, she recites the story yet again, saying that she has no intention of repairing broken mirrors, as marriages are seen as mirrors in Chinese culture, which, when broken, are close to impossible to repair. But she continues to explain that she still wants to bring Chen Shimei to justice. This plea sadly goes to deaf ears, as the Empress Dowager orders her guards to seize Qin Xianglian's children, saying she will return them once Chen Shimei is released. And if it were the case that Chen Shimei should be executed, then she, the Empress Dowager, would take her own life. With the Empress Dowager's life now at stake, Judge Bao is distraught and tries to solve the situation by giving Qin Xianglian 300 pieces of fine silver and sending her away, which she of course tries to refuse but is forced to accept, exclaiming that there's no justice and that Judge Bao was just another minister looking out for himself, forcing Judge Bao to ponder for a moment before he realizes his mistake and calling her back in. Whatever the consequences, Judge Bao will enact justice. He relinquishes his position as a minister by taking off his hat, and he calls out for the executioner to behead Chen Shimei, and the curtain calls as the courtroom plays. So that was the story of Qin Xianglian, or the name it also ironically goes by, the grievances of Chen Shimei, and also the origin for the epic lyrics to Chinese Rap Full. A surprisingly good story, hidden behind a meme, which is hidden behind the language barrier. I'm surprised you managed to watch this far, cause this was a pain in the ass to write, and I applaud your patience. I sincerely hope you enjoyed it, because I will probably not be making any more video essays. And thanks again to everyone who wants to support these silly little projects. Big hugs and kisses to you all. But before I leave you for another unspecified amount of time, I have something special in store. Coming very, very soon. Could you do a quick introduction for the audience?
My name is Chingen, and currently I just want to be the president of the future democratic China.